Now, if you remember, we talked earlier about rounding double-digit numbers to the nearest tens. Now, we used the number 38, and if you'll remember, 38 fell somewhere between 30 and 40. And what was right smack in the middle of 30 and 40? 35. So, and then we counted up on our number line. You start with 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. And you'll remember we saw that 38 was right here, and that was just two numbers away from 40. And although we didn't need the exact number, we didn't want to stray too far from 38. And we saw that 38 was closer to 40 than it was to 30. So therefore, 38 rounded to 40. So what if we had an extra zero there? If we had 380, we'd add a zero here, zero here, zero here, and a zero here. That's just letting us know that just instead of having a 10 round multiples of 10s, we now have a multiple of 100. Now earlier we used the number 63. So why don't we use the number 630? Now if we're going to round this to the nearest hundreds, which has got 3 digits, instead of using 60 and 70, we'll use 600 and 700. And as you probably already guessed, 650 is right smack in the middle. See, 60, 65, 70, if we were just using the 2 digits. Now, 630 falls somewhere between 600 and 700. We need to ask ourselves the question, exactly where does it fall at? Well, somewhere between 600 and 650 is 601 and 649. On the other side of that coin, we have 650 goes to 651, right on up to 700. So then we ask ourselves, where does the 630 fall at? And of course we know, because we know how to count, that 650 is greater than 630. So 630 is somewhere in this area right here. And of course you see that is closer to 600 than it is to 700. The purpose of rounding is to find a number that's easier to work with, but not too far away from our original number. So we can safely say that 630 rounds to 600. Now you've seen how rounding looks when using numbers literally, but we can't always draw a number line when we need to round. So a poem was devised. I did not make this poem up. A student of mine shared it with me. When you look at the last digit of any number you're going to round, then you remember this poem. 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, let it rest. And you know, what all do you know that soars? Can an eagle soar up higher in the sky? Can a jet plane soar up in the air? So let's consider our numbers. Let's take the number 63 again. Look at the last digit, that would be the number 3. Now, this last digit, if it's 5 or more, it's going to soar higher. If it's 4 or less, it's going to rest. So look at that 3. Is this 5 or more? No, it's 4 or less. So this will go back down to 0 and rest. So 63 rounds to 60. Let's try another one. What if we had the number, what did we have earlier, 38? What if we had the number, move this aside real quick. Okay, here we go. What if we had the number 38? Now, according to the poem, we look at the last digit. In this case, it's the 8. If it's 5 or more, we'll let it soar. If it's 4 or less, we'll let it rest. So does 8 fall in the 5 or more category, or the 4 or less? Well, we know it falls into the 5 or more. So this is going to bump up, soar up to the next higher multiple, which in this case will be 40. What if we had the number, let's use a number we haven't used yet. What if we had the number 89? Again, let's look at the poem. Is this 5 or less, or 4? Is it 4 or less, or 5 or more? We look at the number 9. We see that it's 5 or more, so it's going to soar up to the next multiple, which would be 90. So this is just a real quick way of remembering how to get the rounded numbers, and once we're comfortable with rounding, we can use those numbers to estimate our product with, or addition, or anything else.